seen in the last few days, in fact the last week, police out in force in areas on the West Rand. Over 120 people are now known to have been arrested. Many of them have been charged for being in the country illegally. It was all sparked by the rape of 8 women at a mining site in the West Rand, in Krugersdorp to be exact, on Thursday last week. That was a team that was out shooting a music video in the area. Since then, communities such as those in Kagiso and Munseyville today have been going from one property to the next and even protesting, saying that they want to get rid of illegal miners who are responsible, allegedly, for crimes including rape and abduction. Let's speak about the police response now with Ziyanda Stuurman, who's a policing and security advisor. Ziyanda, welcome to Daytime Update. Thank you so much for your time. Let's begin on that very point. Your assessment of how police have done in handling these past 7 days.
I mean, I think that the main issue is the fact that the police have really been caught on the back foot. Of course, the horrific incident that happened last week had to absolutely be responded to. I think the main issue now is the fact that, there's now been escalating tension over several days. And I don't think that we've been able to see the type of rapid deployment of resources that are necessary in a situation such as this. Again, as you had said in the previous statement, some of these miners who are in conflict with the community are well armed and seem to be very organized in nature. And so I think that the police really should have, in many ways, predicted this, and particularly with the local station or local precinct, been able to mount a much more robust response and had heavier patrols and a high-density operation in place.
One feels like a stuck record saying this, but it takes us back to what has been flagged about the SAPS for years now, reactive versus proactive policing.
I agree with that 100%. I think that we're really starting to see, and now when we sort of zoom out and take a bigger picture of things, we're really starting to see how the erosion of crime intelligence structures and the dysfunction across the board of being able to gather intelligence quickly, being able to nip organized crime in the bud, and particularly where syndicates are rife. Them being able to do something about that before, again, the situation boils over into one that they, again, are struggling to respond to, is really at the heart of the issues that we're seeing at the moment.
I was quite struck yesterday by the agreement, at least between the group of residents that we were showing and the provincial police management that had just arrived to meet there. They appear to agree that the residents and police need each other, yet this rift between them remains. Why?
That's such a good point. I think that, ultimately policing, particularly in communities that are besieged by crime or have high levels of crime, really does need a cooperative approach to things. Many residents know, more than they're necessarily willing to say, but that also takes the police meeting them halfway, that there should be, enough open communication. There should be enough in terms of efforts being done for community outreach, whether it's overt or a bit more sort of covert, and in a situation where you have deteriorating levels of trust, where the police community members themselves know who is corrupt within the police service or know who can and can't be trusted. I think that really erodes this idea that communities and police can work together, particularly in proactive ways. How to rebuild that trust on a macro level is something we're deeply struggling with. But at least on a station and more local level, there should be sort of pathways where communities are able to give information to police, whether it's anonymously or more sort of in concert. But that relationship has to be there or has to be rebuilt in order for a partnership in that way to work.
Casting our eyes to possible solutions, the Minerals Minister, Gwede Mandashe, is of the opinion, or the department at least, is of the opinion that among the issues or possible interventions that should be explored is the establishment of a special unit to deal with illegal mining in the country. How helpful would that be?
I mean, I think that there are so many cascading issues all at once. And if we kind of try to look at them constantly as siloed issues for a special unit or a special task team. We're not approaching this in a really holistic manner that it needs. Firstly, the Department of Minerals, Resources and Energy really should be looking at the mining companies that are not, properly closing mine shafts, that are not rehabilitating mine shafts, that then make it possible that, illegal mining activities proliferate. Private sector absolutely has a role to step up here and take responsibility for their own failings as well. There are broader issues around even border management, where activities are happening, from those who may not be South African as well, and the enforcement of those migration rules. And then lastly, broadly, socioeconomic issues that obviously need to be addressed, which is what really drives these illegal miners, underground and involved in that type of work. So the police have a role to play, but absolutely everyone else has a role to play too. And I really don't want to just lay this at the feet of the police and say that they're the only ones now who can come up with solutions.
Just on that, police, yes, are tasked with ensuring law and order, maintaining law and order, and arresting those who rape people, who mine illegally, who break into other people's properties, right? But you mentioned migration, Home Affairs would then be responsible. You mentioned monitoring that the mining houses actually dispose of disused mining areas in accordance with the law. That's a Minerals and Energy Department issue, is it not? And I wonder to what point police have been scapegoated as the ones who should, in fact, shoulder the blame for all that's been unfolding in areas such as the West Rand.
I do think that that's the case. I do think that there's been almost this overcorrection, in terms of saying that the police now have the duty to solve absolutely everything that's happening across the board, where they're best placed or situated to act is in a rapid response to the deteriorating situation in terms of particularly security right now. But if we're thinking long term, it cannot be the police's job, to take care of everything or every aspect or facet of this particular issue. There has to be cooperation and there has to be momentum and work that steps forward. So essentially, the Minister Mandashe of Minerals and Energy is really, I think, in his part, lacking to do the work that his department has been mandated to do by simply saying that there, needs to be special units set up within the police. There's work for him to do as well.
And the other issue, of course, the other strand on this broader crime problem, migration also in the mix, and mining regulations not being adhered to, right? We've covered that, but a lot of the communities are also saying they find it hard to speak openly about the involvement of people who are in the country illegally in crime because they are then immediately shot down as being xenophobic. How well have we done as a country in sort of walking that line, understanding that you can have a discussion about the involvement of people who are foreign nationals here illegally being involved in crime without necessarily being anti-foreigners?
Yeah, I think that is, one of our most complex social issues to really try and target. We saw with the murder of Elvis Nyati earlier in the year with Operation Dudula and many other organizations mobilizing in incredibly dangerous ways. That's the exact conversation you're having, or the topic that you're talking about, really teeters on a knife's edge. There's a very, very thin line between being able to discuss issues that are being driven by illegal immigration or unlawful migration, and then, on top of that, really stirring up violence against foreign nationals and xenophobia. I think that the answer at the end of the day is more ad hoc or on a sort of more granular level, where in this case, particularly the people who are involved in these mining activities are very obviously not here legally, but in many other circumstances and in other situations, just as we were talking about how the police are being scapegoated by other or at least having an undue level of responsibility by government departments, I think that there is often also a scapegoating of foreign nationals, and us blaming them for all crimes across the board when we know that that's not the case.
Ziyanda Stuurman, Policing and Security Advisor, good to have your time. Thank you so much for speaking to us.